My husband's friend convinced him our kids might not be his and wants to do a DNA test, but if he really gets this done then I want a divorce. Posted by a heartbroken wife using a throwaway account, as my husband knows my Reddit handle. I, 34F, have shared my life with Ken, not his real name, 37M, since I was sweet 16. We met in high school. He was my brother's friend. Our love story blossomed into a decade-long marriage, blessed with a precious 2-year-old son and another miracle on the way. Ken has always been my soulmate, my anchor in life's storms. I can't remember a time when my heart didn't beat for him. We grew up together, dreamed together, built our world together. Ken has this beautiful yet sometimes challenging trait. He absorbs others' emotions like a sponge, feeling their joys and sorrows as deeply as his own. It's what made him such a compassionate husband and father, but now this gift has become our curse. Recently, his best friend of 2 decades discovered his wife's infidelity and learned that none of their children were biologically his. His friend, shattered and adrift, sought refuge in our guest room. He's fundamentally a good person, just weathering life's cruelest storm. But his pain has become a poison slowly seeping into our home. But this past month, our paradise has crumbled piece by piece, like a sandcastle against the rising tide. Ken has descended into a pit of melancholy so deep I can barely recognize him anymore. My morning coffee offering now elicits only a hollow mumble, where once there were warm smiles and loving kisses. Coming home feels like entering a stranger's house. Ken and his friend have claimed the living room as their sports-watching sanctuary, the air thick with unspoken accusations and bitter commentary about women these days. I've become invisible in my own home, a ghost going through the motions of making dinner and caring for our son, while their whispered conversations stop abruptly whenever I enter the room. My attempts to bridge this growing chasm are met with monosyllabic responses before Ken retreats into late-night solitude until 1 a.m., leaving me to cry silently into my pillow. I'm exhausted, alone, and carrying our second child, yearning for my husband's love and support while watching him slip further away each day. Yesterday, my world imploded. Following an inexplicable sense of unease, I found Ken in his office, hunched over his computer, researching DNA testing kits for our son. When confronted, his words cut deeper than any blade. Well, I just want to verify all the kids are mine before continuing as their caretaker. I'm not free childcare. I'm utterly devastated. If he questions my faithfulness, hasn't he already shattered the foundation of our marriage? Can we rebuild from such ruins? Am I being overly emotional due to pregnancy hormones? Would seeking divorce be an extreme reaction? Perhaps I should present the divorce papers alongside the DNA results he so desperately craves. Right now, I'm retreating to our bedroom to let my tears flow freely. The weight of this betrayal forced me to take a day off work. It feels like my heart has been ripped from my chest. Update, 11 hours later. Dearest Reddit community. After pouring my heart out earlier today, your overwhelming support has been my lifeline. There's something cathartic about sharing your deepest pain with compassionate strangers. My breakdown had to be brief. Motherhood doesn't pause for heartache. I reached out to my guardian angels, my stepmom and dad. I lost my mom when I was 10. Through tears and barely coherent words, I found strength in their love. They're arriving Friday to help me weather this storm. I've delivered my ultimatum to Ken, more of a monologue to his distant form. His friend must leave by Thursday. I'm trying to be humane, not heartless, and Ken needs to go too. While I could seek refuge at my father's house, I refuse to uproot our toddler and disrupt the nursery I've lovingly prepared for our coming baby, especially at 8 months pregnant. Though this is legally my house, I've chosen not to weaponize that fact, striving to maintain dignity in this chaos. I'm not entirely sure Ken absorbed my words, but I've enlisted his sister, a force of nature, who's promised to ensure his departure by Thursday night. My terms are clear. He can have his precious DNA test, but he'll have to arrange it himself. I'll even consent to testing our unborn child. I have nothing to hide. Let me be crystal clear about why this DNA demand cuts so deep. Ken isn't just my husband, he's my first and only love. Infidelity isn't in my vocabulary. His desire for these tests reveals a devastating lack of trust that's poisoning our marriage. Moving forward, I want several things. The DNA tests, mainly so I can watch him swallow his pride when the results confirm what I've always known. Couples therapy. I already see a therapist to process the tragic loss of my mom and little sister in a car accident, and possibly individual counseling for him, though I can't force healing on someone who refuses to acknowledge their wounds. Most crucially, I want him to maintain his bond with our son. Despite his current doubts, our little boy deserves his father's love. He's an innocent 2-year-old who shouldn't suffer for adult complications. The same applies to our daughter when she arrives. While our marriage hangs by a thread, I'm determined to preserve some channel of communication so he can be the devoted father he once was. Am I losing my grip on sanity? Sometimes pouring my heart out to strangers feels like my only anchor to reality. Thank you, Reddit, for being my silent support system. Second update, 6 days later. Dear Reddit family. To address some recurring questions, yes, this is my childhood home, inherited from my mother. My decision to stay put stems from practical considerations. I'm heavily pregnant with a toddler to care for. Why should we be displaced? While some criticize my asking Ken to leave, try sharing space with someone who either picks fights or gives you the silent treatment. I chose peace for my children. If that seems harsh, so be it. My role as a mother takes precedence over being a wife. Ken's friend departed as requested, though not without hurling parting insults, a lovely farewell indeed. Ken's sister orchestrated his departure with silent fury, her death glares speaking volumes. The DNA results confirmed what I never doubted, our son is undeniably Ken's. Yet somehow, he's convinced I manipulated the results, suggesting he's lost touch with reality. In the midst of this chaos, while I was preparing tea, my water broke. Our beautiful daughter has arrived, 9 pounds, 8 ounces of pure perfection. Ken has visited her, but since she hasn't undergone DNA testing, and apparently girls are rare in his family, despite his own sister's existence, he questions her paternity too. I can only respond with exhausted eye rolls. We're at an impasse. Ken refuses therapy, insisting his mind is sound. I beg to differ. He's demanding another DNA test for our son, being secretive about the details to prevent my alleged interference. Perhaps someday clarity will pierce his fog of suspicion. My parents have extended their stay to help with the children. Emotionally, I'm a hurricane of feelings, struggling to find solid ground. Ken's sister visits the little ones, and we maintain an unspoken pact not to discuss him, except when our son asks about his daddy. I wish I could report a fairy tale ending where the DNA results sparked an epiphany and restored our happiness. Instead, I'm taking life one breath at a time. I ache for my former best friend and grieve that he's missing these precious moments with his daughter. Sometimes the pain threatens to overwhelm me, but I can't afford to drown in tears. As always, thank you for being my emotional outlet. Perhaps I'll share more updates as life unfolds. For now, I'm haunted by questions. Am I handling this right? Could I do more? Why has he suddenly rejected the children he once adored? Third update, 10 days later. Reddit community. The truth has exploded like a bomb in my life, leaving devastating clarity in its wake. I now understand what destroyed my marriage, and who Ken really is. The man I thought was my soulmate was wearing a mask all along. I'm ready to divorce him, cut my losses, and rebuild from the ashes. I'm still home with my precious babies, learning to navigate this new chapter of motherhood. My parents remain my pillars of strength, though they'll depart once I'm more emotionally stable. To claim I'm okay would be a lie, but at least I know my path forward. The truth about Ken emerged in the most dramatic way possible when a visibly pregnant woman appeared at my door, demanding to know when I'd be vacating Ken's house. She stood there, one hand protectively cradling her swollen belly, the other clutching a stack of photos like weapons. The surreal conversation that followed felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. She's Ken's mistress, or rather, in her mind, his fiancé. I'm sorry, she said, not sounding sorry at all, but Ken needs you out by the end of the month. We're getting married, and this house needs to be ready for our baby. I stood there, frozen, as she continued to destroy my world with casual cruelty. A month ago, this man, my husband, my supposed soulmate, had the audacity to propose to her in MY Kitchen, right where I make our family breakfast every morning. They've been carrying on their affair for quite some time, and she's expecting his child, a fact she announced with a triumphant smile that made me want to scream. In her version of reality, I'm the ex-wife Ken generously allows to stay until I get back on my feet, and none of my children are his. The same children he's demanding DNA tests for, while building a whole new family behind my back. She had evidence, photos, even an OnlyFans account where they create content together. Each revelation was like a knife to my heart. I told her the brutal truth about our marriage, though her next moves are her own battle to fight, not my circus, not my monkeys anymore. Now I'm strategizing my divorce. I've heard that once you consult with a lawyer, they can't represent your spouse. I'm contemplating meeting every reputable lawyer in town during their free consultation hour, effectively limiting Ken's options for representation. Too petty? Perhaps, but I'm past caring. The house is solely in my name and legally protected, so that's one less worry. Our finances are largely separate, sharing only a household expense account. Ken's family has completely disowned him, and his sister has evicted him from her home. To those who suggested medical causes for his behavior, a tumor or mental illness, I now know better. This was simply his web of lies unraveling as his new baby's arrival threatened to expose everything. Cornered, he lashed out with increasingly desperate attempts to discredit me and our children. During the divorce, I'll ensure court-ordered DNA testing for both children, though I doubt even irrefutable proof will penetrate his denial. I'm mentally drained from this ordeal, questioning how I missed the signs. Perhaps I need an eye exam, but more pressingly, would it be wrong to deliberately complicate his access to legal representation, or would that be crossing a line? Part of me wants him to suffer as I have. Fourth update, 1 year later. Hello again, dear Reddit friends. Life has a way of making you forget your past ramblings, but here I am with a final chapter to share. I'm okay, really okay, not just saying it. The divorce is finally official, though the journey here felt endless and sometimes suffocating. There were days when I thought I'd never smile again, nights when the weight of betrayal felt too heavy to bear. But like a phoenix rising from the ashes, I've found strength I never knew I possessed. Both children's DNA tests through the court system confirmed what I always knew, they're Ken's. He still refuses to accept this reality, but that's no longer my burden to bear. I've learned that you can't force someone to accept truth they're determined to deny. Ken is currently incarcerated for domestic abuse, not against me, but his former mistress. I don't know the details, nor do I want to. It seems his mask of perfection finally cracked completely, revealing the monster that was always lurking beneath. Some days, tears still ambush me when I least expect them, and I can't claim to be completely healed. But these tears are different now, they're not for the man I lost, but for the love I wasted on someone who never truly existed. I've returned to work post-maternity leave, earned a promotion, and found my rhythm in our new life as a family of 3. My children are my North Star, their laughter and love guiding me through the darkest nights. They're thriving despite everything, proving that sometimes a broken home is better than a toxic one. They maintain relationships with their paternal grandparents and extended family, who've been incredibly supportive throughout this ordeal. Ken's sister remains a treasured ally. She recently told me that she's prouder to be an aunt to my children than a sister to Ken. Words feel inadequate to capture everything I've learned on this journey. About love, trust, betrayal, and most importantly, about my own resilience. I'm working, my children are flourishing, and while I can't thank Ken for much, I'm eternally grateful for my precious little ones. They're the silver lining in this storm cloud, the proof that sometimes beautiful things can grow from the darkest soil. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your gut, protect your peace, and remember that you're stronger than you know. The end of a marriage doesn't have to be the end of your story. Sometimes it's just the beginning of a better one.